All right, testing, 1, 2, 3. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the Springboro Tea Party's Reaffirmation of the Bill of Rights rally. This has been in planning for a little while, and we've been putting a lot of time and effort into it, and every last penny we could to try to get this bad boy to happen. So if anybody has good favor with the man upstairs, say a little prayer, and hopefully we have clear skies throughout the whole event. Just a quick reminder, if you want some refreshments, we have some drinks and some pizza right up there at the concession stand, so feel free to take a minute or so and get yourself something to eat. All proceeds obviously to benefit the Springboro Tea Party. Okay, we are about halfway through our presentation, so there's a lot of good information here. I'm looking forward to watching this video again myself because I want to try to reabsorb all of it and not trying to do all the mechanics of trying to shoot it. So I'm looking forward to watching it later on because repetition is the key, because sometimes if you go watch videos a little bit over, sometimes the information doesn't hit you right away, then all of a sudden you listen to it later on and it just clicks. And so that's really, really key for me.
So how do we see it again?
It'll be on Time Warner channel, Time Warner Digital channel 991. It'll also be on YouTube on the Springboro Tea Party channel. So just a reminder that Springboro High School is doing some Constitution programs coming up, and the school board is actually getting a lot of flack over it. We actually had some groups actually told Jim Regano that they thought it was unconstitutional for them to have Constitution classes available. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? That's like citing Christians against Christ or something, you know what I'm saying? Okay, real quick, before I introduce my next speaker, I'll talk briefly about nullification. Recently, Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor was at the Warren County GOP Lincoln Day dinner, and much to our chagrin, she showed up 3.5 hours late, claiming the weather was bad and the traffic was really horrendous, and that may have been the case. However, when she gets up there, she basically propagates herself as a complete anti-Obamacare advocate. 10 minutes into her speech, she basically says that, well, we can't get rid of Obamacare. It's here to stay, so basically get ready to accept it. Right. So in other words, bend over, here it comes. It's just like Animal House. Yes, sir, may I have another? So if she would have stuck around after her speech instead of exiting as fast as she did, I was going to track her down and say, Mrs. Taylor, I have one word for you, and we could take care of Obamacare right now. It's called nullify. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison introduced the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions that basically said that the powers that we gave the federal government to bring us certain rules and regulations in, when they start to overstep their bounds, the states take that power back through the 9th and 10th Amendments, and they basically say, nullification, the hell with you, we don't recognize it. You're starting to see also a movement going on where people are putting petitions into the White House for secession. Now, this can only work in one of two ways. We've seen what happens before when states try to secede, when President Lincoln basically stated in his own campaign speeches that he was not going to abolish slavery in which the states already have it, but he wasn't going to allow it in states that were going to be coming online. Now, I don't agree with slavery at all, but the thing is, for you to dictate to states what they can and cannot do, it, especially in that time of American history, is unacceptable. South Carolina was very right to secede and to call President Lincoln what he was, a tyrant. The only president to go and invade his own country. And so the other states that followed suit afterwards were right within their states' rights to do so. And then the revisionist history you hear in our classes is that Civil War was all about slavery. No, it was not. It was about states' rights and state sovereignty. You had an industrial North dictating terms to an agrarian South. And they did it for ill intentions and using slavery as a cover story in which to erode their sovereignty. Now, what you're seeing now is petitions possibly going to the White House. Now, this is actually very disturbing for two reasons. One is the fact that these people that have signed these petitions have just put themselves on the NDAA watch list, which is sad because it violates their First Amendment rights of redress of grievances. But we have to do the same thing that John Adams did when we had the Constitution Conventions for the Declaration of Independence, that we must be unanimous in our secession from the Crown and from the federal government. If all 50 states say we secede and we do not recognize the authority of the tyrannical Washington, D.C. government, then we render it superfluous and it's automatically nullified. And if they try to go and bring troops into our states after that, then it's game on. So if they want to get to that point, I guarantee you there are many people who have taken the vow to defend the Constitution within the armed forces that will not comply, that will not raise weapons to our citizens, and tell the federal government where they can go with themselves. Now, I've actually found myself quoting myself and put my own statements on back of business cards because I got tired of repeating them. But I will tell you this. States have rights. Rights which are guaranteed to us within the 9th and 10th Amendments of the Constitution of these United States. And if the federal government refuses to acknowledge those rights, I say we send them our own Declaration of Independent States and we form our own country. If secession comes, I stand with the new Confederacy. I can tell you that sure enough, as Robert E. Lee could not raise his own sword against the sovereign state of Virginia, neither can I against the sovereign state of Ohio. I will stand with my citizenry here in Ohio and tell the federal government where they can go when it comes to stepping on states' rights. As sure as I'm standing here, you can put that where the goats can reach at. I can tell you right now. All right, I'm getting off my soapbox for the moment before I really get fired up. Thank you, Mary Sue. Like I said, I recorded her at the March Against Monsanto march up in Dayton at the end of May, and I really enjoyed her comments. As a matter of fact, again, when I was editing the video, I could really absorb it all, and I was just like, wow, she has some really great talking points. Pro and con on both of that issue, real quick, before I bring up Eric, is just from my general perspective, I see with wanting to have a 28th Amendment for the abolition of corporate personhood is a great poster child of the left. A great poster child of the right is a balanced budget amendment that they keep on trying to propose. The problem with both of these issues is that it will cause a Constitution Convention. The reason why we don't want a Constitution Convention is because people such as George Soros would come in flush with cash and lobbyists and taint that entire process when the Constitution is at its most vulnerable. Now, if we follow the Constitution to the letter, we wouldn't have to worry about any more Constitution amendments because the Constitution is very precise. There are things that the federal government cannot do. And we need to start looking at some of the laws that Congress has passed and find out which ones are constitutional and which ones aren't. And I guarantee you half the crap that they've either proposed or have already passed would be abolished immediately because they're not constitutional, period. But that's what the whole idea. I like the option of discussion because of the fact that this gets a free flow of ideas going and not having to worry about a Republican and a Democrat saying you should do it this way or that way. I like independent people coming with their ideas so that way we can say somewhere in the middle lies the truth, and I guarantee we will get the results that we need from that thing. But that's just my stance. But I wanted to everyone hear Mary Sue's opinion on that because of the fact I think she has very valid points, and I definitely think it's something we should look into. Right, but still, that's typically how it goes. Now, the question I do want to pose to you on some levels is, again, going back to state sovereignty real quick, are we states or are we zip codes within the federal government? Because that's how they see us. If you look at what zip codes are actually made by the military to show basically bombing coordinates back in the 40s and things of that nature. So when you look at it as, are we zip codes or are we sovereign states? And that is the question that needs to be brought up. We need to understand why the states tried to secede in 1861, and we need to understand why we need to step up and start thinking about secession again if the federal government, again, becomes too overbearing. Which leads me next to Eric Lamont Gregory, because his topic on liberty versus security, again, reminds us of what Benjamin Franklin said, that if you give the security of government to protect you, you lose your liberty, and you deserve neither. So, bring up Eric. I'm just going to take 2 minutes to talk about this, and then I'll bring in my next guest, which is Dave Davis, who runs the Liberty Market of Kettering. Again, he is promoting non-GMO foods, healthy foods, raw dairy milk, and things of that nature. So definitely make sure that you visit his store and become a regular patron, because of the fact that he's taken the time to make sure these resources are available for you. Show him your patronage and show how much you approve of that. Real quick, I'm going to go into about the NDAA and the FEMA camps real quickly. Jesse Ventura had an episode on his show, Conspiracy Theory, I think it was during season 1, about the police state. You want to know how accurate this thing was. It aired once. I think it re-aired once, and it was quickly removed off the rerun list off of True TV. In many cases I hear on Time Warner Digital even, it was erased off the DVRs. This episode was so accurate and explained exactly what the FEMA camps were under H.R. 645 that the congressman to help authorize that basically played stupid and said it was about Martians and space aliens. I mean, knowing he's on camera, he actually had the audacity to say it was something along those lines. Oh, I didn't think it was about that. What it is about FEMA camps that were actually started under the Rex 84 plan during the Reagan administration in the event of illegal aliens basically rioting or whatever the case may be. This was a secret government program that was implemented, and you can understand at the height and hysteria of the Cold War why something like that might be in the process of being put together. In the event of the beheading of the government, which the Weather Underground hoped to do back in the 70s, was the fact that they had a continuity of government program. So if something were to happen to the federal government, they would, if you ever watch Star Trek Next Generation, when the saucer section is able to detach from the rest of the ship, that they have a battle bridge on the rest of the other half of the ship to go attack while the saucer section with the family gets out of the way. Same idea there. It's a continuity of government situations to take care and fight off your enemy, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have a contingency plan. But then you got to ask yourself the question, with a contingency plan like that in place, how could it get out of control? And that's something that we need to worry about. October 17, 2006, President Bush signed into law the John Warner Defense Authorization Act. The law allows the president to declare, quote, a public emergency at his own discretion and place federal troops anywhere throughout the United States. Under this law, the president now has the authority to federalize National Guard troops without the consent of the governors in order to restore public order. The president can now deploy federal troops to a city which eliminates the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act, which basically is Caesar crossing the Rubicon into Rome. This is something we need to worry about here. Unfortunately, at this particular point, Pompey Magnus has not only left Rome, he's totally left the country. So we have no counterpoint to Caesar. In short, Obama can now declare martial law anytime he sees fit to do so. Just real quickly, going through this here. On October 1st, 2008, the U.S. Army's 1st Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division began the stateside mission under U.S. Northern Command, also known as NORCOM. It was the first time that an active duty Army unit has been assigned for this type of mission. They are known as the Consequence Management Response Force. They are responsible for responding to terrorist attacks and restoring order in case of civil unrest. Among supposed humanitarian duties, their specific job is to provide crowd control and traffic control and to subdue unruly or dangerous individuals without killing them. A sample of this you saw during Katrina in New Orleans after the hurricane came through. In addition to the standard weapons, the 1st Brigade has been equipped with mobile roadblocks, spike strips for stopping vehicles, shields, batons, beanbag bullets, and taser guns. Now you ask yourself, do you really need this type of stuff? I mean, do you really, really need this type of stuff? And yet the federal government, Dianne Feinstein and Joe Biden want to take our constitutional amendment of the Second Amendment away. And people, and I've had this debate with my stepdad on this particular topic. Oh, we don't need assault weapons. You don't need high magazine clips and things of that nature. BS. Just because technology has improved does not mean it gives the federal government carte blanche to have the latest technological weapons. And we're stuck with black powder musket rifles? So our constitutional right to own black powder rifles should not be infringed? Really? That's unacceptable. And the fact that Feinstein would introduce any type of legislation such as this, she should have been immediately censored and tried for treason against crimes against the Constitution. They went after Joe McCarthy in the 50s over just questioning people for being affiliated, even remotely affiliated with the Communist Party. Remember when congressional hearings used to actually matter? When Barry Goldwater would get you in an inquiry and he would ask you a question, you try to sidestep him, boy, he went after you. He went totally after you. And this is unacceptable. Not against Goldwater, but unacceptable that we don't have congressional committees that actually have some pith, have some real validity, and start saying, hey, you're doing wrong, we're going to come after you. And the Congress has abdicated their duties to check not only the Supreme Court, but the executive branch. They've been given power to the executive branch for the last 30 to 40 years. And this is unacceptable. And the last governor to stand up for states' rights, arguably, was George Wallace. Whether you agree about the issue or not about the integration of students at the time, The bottom line is he was standing up for state sovereignty, and he knew he was the last state to have the chance to do so. And he was up against Bobby Kennedy, and with the National Guard in his face, the problem is he blinked. He was the last governor to stand up for true states' rights. Again, I'm not proposing that we should agree with slavery or separate but equal, but anything like that. I think the local communities can decide how they want to have their school systems run without something egregious such as Common Core telling you what you should do, what the standards should be. Teachers getting 50% of their pay withheld unless they follow the Common Core agreements that they set forth. This is nothing more than nationalization of education. This is the very thing Reagan campaigned against in 1980, that he was going to abolish the Department of Education and get rid of it. Shortly after he was inaugurated, he was shot. And then after that, he was basically told, I would assume, that you either comply or next time we're not going to miss. So he doubled the Department of Education. Unacceptable. But Reagan had to compromise with Congress somewhere to get the defense spending he needed to play high stakes poker with the Soviets so that way he could bankrupt them. And that's what he did with having proxy wars and everything else. He actually went against what George Washington advocated about a non-interventionist foreign policy, which seems to have been our guaranteed diplomatic agenda ever since Truman has been in office. We go invade Korea on UN standards? Unacceptable. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution, the Gulf of Tonkin never happened. It was fabricated. It took 40 years for them to unclassify it. Even McNamara said it never happened. And why isn't McNamara in jail? He was the one that told Johnson to go for it. This is unacceptable. We lost 58,000 of our men over in Vietnam. We should never have been there. In '62, JFK had signed an executive order abolishing the Federal Reserve with the stroke of his pen. That order still stands. It's never been rescinded. So as of at least 1962 for sure, the Federal Reserve is a fraudulent and a terrorist organization by definition that has control of our money supply, and Kennedy tried to send the power back to the Treasury and to Congress to start coining money again. That law still stands. We need to start doing something about it. And the one thing that Dennis Kucinich did while he was still in office was that he was bringing up articles of impeachment against President Bush, and he was right to do so. And one of his charges of impeachment against President Bush was the use of signing statements as an executive line item veto. It's essentially what they were doing it for. Saying, well, I'm going to pass this law, but I'm not going to follow this and this and this, but I agree with this. Newt Gingrich was one of the proponents for an executive decision veto. That is reserved for governors, not for presidents. Because if you allow a president to have a line item veto, that is way too much power. Because no matter what law you send on his desk, he says, I'm not going to oblige by this, heck with you. And that's just too much power for one man to have in his fingertips. Last, I'm going to close with this. There are FEMA camps all over the United States. There are some near here in the southwest Ohio area. There's one up in Lima, right off of I-75, near a rock quarry. You can go to SpringboroTeaParty.com. There's a complete list of what's known facts that we can find about where the FEMA camps are. And I would encourage anybody to get a camera, film something, take pictures, and expose this thing for what it is. Because obviously, the barbed wire that's facing in is to keep people in, not to keep people out. And you got to ask yourself, what type of nation puts forth gulags to be able to house its own citizens? And under NDAA, they can arrest you just for us simply talking about this issue today and black bag you and vanish you. This is not America. This is not Mussolini's Italy. This is not Hitler's Germany, and it sure as hell isn't Uncle Joe Stalin's Soviet Russia. Arguably, yes. So in Ohio, there is Camp Perry. It's a site renovated, once used by a POW camp to house German and Italian prisoners of World War II. Some tar paper-covered huts built for housing these prisoners are still standing. Recently, the construction of a multiple 200-man barracks have replaced most of the huts. Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, FEMA detention facilities. There's data needed on these things. If you can find more information, feel free to add to it. Lima, there's a FEMA detention facility, another facility located in a near old stone quarry near Interstate 75, railroad access to property fences, etc. This is something right out of the movie Journey to Subador, where basically they show how they were basically training people to the Treblinka camp to have them eliminated. Now, we saw what happened to the Jews, and we raised holy hell about that, and we actually have a major remembrance in that, and it's called the Holocaust. You want that to happen to Americans? You know, there was a famous guy in Germany, he basically said, well, first they came for the engineers, and since I wasn't engineers, they didn't come for me. First then they came for this particular group, that group, this group. And because I wasn't any of these people, I didn't stand up for them. Then they came for me. And since there was no one else to speak up for me, that was it. So it's time we started saying enough is enough. Don't care about what Carson Palmer's doing for Cincinnati Bengals. Care what Mike Turner's doing for you in Congress and hold him accountable. So on that note, I will bring up my next speaker, because one of the things we need to worry about is making sure that we have the decision to choose what food we want to put in our bodies and not have some government agency, an IRS committee, or something else say that you can or cannot have this candy bar or this cantaloupe or whatever else you want to have. It's our choice to decide if we want to drink raw milk. You know that song by Hank Williams Jr., Country Folk Can't Survive? You know why? Because they're healthier than you and I. They're not eating McDonald's every day. They've got their own food on the farm. Okay, closing remarks, and I just wanted to thank everybody for coming here today, not just the speakers, but also everyone else that came to listen, people who came to participate, have all their views expressed, all different points of the political spectrum, because the fact that unlike the Republicans and Democrats like keep us divided, one thing the Springboro Tea Party does is try to keep us all united, because we're all one people. We may have differences of opinion, but we do not, like Martin Luther said, do we not all bleed red? We need to fight for our rights now while we still have them. And we need to hold all levels of government accountable and start asking questions. Go to your local school boards. Listen to how they're doing things. Read their agenda sheets. Go to your city council meetings. Start asking questions. Prime example here in Springboro recently, Mayor Edgenbrew, I'm hoping this is going to be his last term. This gentleman received six-figure donations from the likes of Arlen Specter before he died in an uncontested mayoral race. In Springboro, Ohio? Really? WTF, man. Oh, man, it was so close, man. I should have went ahead and ran it out. At least I could have stopped him. Hell, I would just put his voting record on the line and just started asking questions. But I wish someone would go up against Edgenbrew. I mean, the gentleman's 68 years old. He even said by his own admission that he has no further political aspirations, but he just wants to be the mayor of Springboro. Does that not sound like Boss Hogg to you? Yep. Who's next? Who's this Roscoe P. Coltrane? Come on, Flash, we're going to go get him. So these are some things you need to start asking yourself, some serious questions. And I think term limits on local level is definitely a must. I'm on the fence on the federal level because of the fact that I do believe you need your Barry Goldwaters and your Teddy Kennedys to kind of set your polls, because of the fact that you know where they stand. Whether you like them or not, you still have regard for your enemy. You know what I'm saying? I never wish ill will on anybody. But you know what? At least I know where Teddy Kennedy stood. At least I knew where Barry Goldwater stood, and I could respect their positions. It's better to be hated for what you are than loved for what you're not. And that's one thing I want to close out with. But I want to thank all of our speakers today, Steve Freiberg, Dan Sullivan, Teresa and Bruce Hall, Eric Deaton, Laura Rosenberger, Don Schrader, Gail Joy, Mary Sue Geimer, Eric Lamont Gregory, Dave Davis, John Anderson, and Hannah Faulkner. And look up their respective links at the Constitution Party, the Americans for Prosperity, and also go to my websites, which are SpringboroTeaParty.com, Council of Conservative Citizens of Ohio, which is cfccohio.org. Also, my personal website, SonnyThomass.com, and my music website, because I promote a lot of local bands, which also air on this network, at the HMD Music Resource Guy, which is thehmd.com. And all the respective Twitter and YouTube links are on those pages. But I want to thank everybody for coming here today and hearing us out, even passerbys that have been walking by in the park. They may have heard something and might think about it. Just because you, or I stood up here and had an opportunity to come up to a podium and say, hey, this is what I think. This is how I feel about this subject, and I'm going to get a megaphone and tell you how I think about it. You don't like it? Walk away. You know? I'm not going to suppress anyone else's freedom of speech. I would die to my last breath to defend their right to say it, whether I agree with it or not. And I think that's paramount. I think it's totally paramount. I think we need to hold the media accountable. And real newspapers, such as Miami Valley newspapers, we need to reward those people and say, thank you for covering the local issues and really standing up, asking questions, and trying to document facts, not fabricate, such as the Dayton Daily skews, as I affectionately call them. They oftentimes take, I will not mention anyone in particular, but I will say someone near the area, takes 20% of a fact and spends the rest of it by 80%. And this is by testimony of the Springboro Police Department. They give this individual complete facts on the case, and he fabricates the rest. I mean, this is like the National Enquirer, you know? Remember the old days of watching cartoons with the little puppets there on TV, with Larry Hagman or whatever, you know? So that makes some definite issues today. So again, make sure you stop at the respective booths. I know they're in the process of putting things away, but I want to thank everybody for coming out, taking the time to set up booths, dealing with the weather, and our prayers are answered a little late, but I think the good Lord is listening because he knows that we stand up for something honest and true, and he tried to help us out as soon as he could. So this is just the beginning of something new. Hopefully we'll get something going by the end of summer, beginning of fall here again, weather permitting, and we will have more interesting people to talk about issues that really matter, not this left-right paradigm crap, but things that affect you and I. That's the only division there should be, is us against them. And we're going to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Give me shelter, don't leave me behind. It's your last life, don't leave me behind. So much pain now, don't leave me alone. Under the cellar door, beneath the floor. So get ready to turn around, 'cause it's your last life to bring me down. So much pain now, I've seen this before. Under the cellar door, beneath the floor. I'm coming close. the edge. I've been out all night and it's gone right to my head. 100 miles an hour and not slowing down. I got the pedal pressed to the floor. I've had me enough, but I still want some more. Come on, give me some more. I've got no time for love tonight, because there's someplace else I'd rather be. A higher place in my so-called society. There's red lights in my rearview mirror and another bridge is burned. There's no turning back, I've reached the point of no return. I've reached the point of no return. I want it all and I want it now. I want my cake and eat it too. I like to burn the candle at both ends, it's true. When will it stop? Well, nobody knows. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. There's no end in sight and I wanna do it all again. Come on, let's do it again. Stuck here in no man's land, headed out to parts unknown. I've been under the radar, but now my cover's blown. Looks like my luck's running out this time, and another lesson's learned. There's no turning back, I've reached the point of no return. The man is moving up on me fast. Looks like it's the end of the road. I'm not gonna make